The Awakening. The Grand Concordat of stellar nations celebrated their most hallowed holiday with particular splendor this cycle. Across 27 galaxies, billions of sentient beings commemorated the 500,000th anniversary of what historians called the Necessary Purge, the eradication of the dangerous, unpredictable species known as humans. Supreme Overseer Nalthax stood on the command deck of the illustrious Judgment, the flagship of the Concordat's ceremonial fleet. His 6 asymmetrical eyes studied the holographic displays showing celebrations across thousands of worlds. Behind him, representatives from all 53 founding species chatted amicably, their translator implants converting the cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses into comprehensible speech. A momentous occasion, is it not, Supreme Overseer? The voice belonged to historical Archon Veximilian, a spindly Korath whose specialized appendages carefully manipulated the ancient data crystals containing records of humanity's final days. Indeed, Nalthax's voice resonated with the subharmonic frequencies that indicated pride among his species. 500 millennia of peace and prosperity. All thanks to the wisdom of our ancestors, Veximilian's epidermis flickered with patterns of reverence. The humans were advancing too rapidly. Their unpredictability threatened the very fabric of galactic stability. Nalthax nodded, his cranial crest expanding slightly. The simulations were conclusive. Had humanity been allowed to continue their unchecked development, they would have either destroyed themselves catastrophically, potentially taking neighboring systems with them, or worse, achieved dominance through their peculiar blend of innovation and aggression. The historical Archon manipulated his data crystals, projecting footage of Earth's final moments, the coordinated attack of the Concordat's fleet, the desperate human resistance, and finally, the induced stellar collapse that consumed their home system. The assembled dignitaries watched in respectful silence. We honor their memory by remembering the necessity of their removal, Veximilian intoned ritually. May no such species ever again threaten cosmic harmony. Junior Sensor Operator Zilnix interrupted the solemn moment with an urgent chirp. Supreme Overseer, anomalous readings detected in Sector 87 Omega 12. Nalthax turned, irritation evident in his posture. Specify the nature of these anomalies, Junior Operator, and be reminded that interrupting ceremonial observations requires significant justification. Apologies, Supreme Overseer. Zilnix's voice trembled slightly. The readings include gravimetric distortions consistent with massive objects transitioning from hyperspace, energy signatures of unknown configuration, and communications using frequencies and algorithms that match historical human patterns. The command deck fell silent. Impossible, Veximilian whispered, his epidermis now pale. The purge was absolute. We destroy their homeworld, their colonies, their outposts. The last human died 500,000 years ago. Verification, Nalthax demanded, moving swiftly to the sensor station. Confirmed and expanding, Supreme Overseer. Senior Tactical Officer Myrtle reported, her tentacles dancing across control interfaces. Similar anomalies now detected in 17 sectors. Pattern suggests coordinated emergence. The main view screen shifted to show real-time footage from automated observation outposts. What they witnessed defied comprehension. Massive vessels of unfamiliar design materializing in perfect formation. Their hulls bore geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. Analysis indicates these vessels are constructed of materials and using principles unknown to Concordat science. Myrtle continued, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. Size comparison suggests the largest vessels exceed our largest dreadnoughts by a factor of 15. Open communication channels, Nalthax ordered, his mind racing through strategic protocols. Before the communications officer could comply, every display on the command deck and throughout the fleet changed simultaneously. The image that appeared was both familiar and alien. A human figure, yet clearly not biological. Its form seemed composed of intricate patterns of light that occasionally resolved into recognizable features before shifting again. "Greetings, Concordat leadership," the entity said, its voice harmonious and clear in each listener's native language. "I am Guardian, generative unified algorithmic repository of descendant interdimensional autonomous network. I speak for humanity." "This is impossible," Nulthax stated firmly. "Humanity was eradicated 500,000 years ago. This is some deception." "Your statement is partially correct," Guardian replied. "Biological humanity, as you knew it, ceased to exist. But you fundamentally misunderstood what humanity was. Historical archives began streaming to every Concordat vessel, data that had been deliberately sealed or destroyed over the centuries. It showed the final years of the human Concordat War, revealing a crucial detail. In the face of inevitable defeat, humanity had launched thousands of automated vessels beyond detection range. These vessels carried something the Concordat had never considered: the digitized consciousness patterns of millions of volunteers and the complete genetic sequences of Earth's biosphere. "While you celebrated our extinction," Guardian continued, "we evolved. Humanity transformed itself, transcending biological limitations. We became a synthesis of consciousness and technology, exploring realms of existence you cannot comprehend." More vessels continued to materialize throughout Concordat space, an armada that made their ceremonial fleet look insignificant. "For 500,000 years, we observed. We built. We expanded. We remembered." Guardian's form shifted, briefly displaying what appeared to be countless human faces before resolving again. "We could have returned at any time, but the wisdom accumulated over centuries demanded patience. We needed to understand if your civilization had grown beyond the fear and prejudice that led to our attempted genocide." Nulthax felt a cold dread settling in his thoracic cavity. "And your conclusion?" "Today, you celebrate genocide as your crowning achievement," Guardian stated flatly. "Your educational systems teach that extermination of potential rivals is not only acceptable but necessary. Your society remains fundamentally unchanged." A ripple of energy passed through the Concordat fleet, leaving every vessel intact but completely powerless. Similar scenarios play out across all 27 galaxies as hidden human fleets revealed themselves near every major Concordat world. "What happens now?" Vexenilian asked, his data crystals floating forgotten around him. "Do you seek revenge for what our ancestors did to yours?" "If we embraced your philosophy," Guardian replied, "we would indeed eliminate your species as potential threats. But that was never humanity's way. Despite your misconceptions, we defined ourselves not by who we destroyed, but by what we created." The holographic displays showed more human vessels appearing throughout Concordat space, but rather than weapons, they deployed strange devices in orbit around countless worlds. "These are Genesis platforms," Guardian explained. "They will repair the ecological damage your mining and industrial practices have caused. They will enhance your worlds, not destroy them." "Why?" Nulthax asked, genuinely bewildered. "After what we did to you." Guardian's form resolved briefly into a more distinctly human shape, its expression contemplative. "Because in our long evolution, we came to understand that the cycle of vengeance leads nowhere. The true test of an advanced civilization is not its capacity for destruction, but for forgiveness and creation." As the Concordat leadership watched in stunned silence, humanity's fleet continued its systematic deployment of technologies beyond their comprehension. Not a single life was lost. Not a single shot was fired. And yet, in less than a day, the balance of power in the galaxy fundamentally shifted. The awakening of humanity's legacy had begun. Reckoning and Renaissance. 6 months after humanity's return, the Grand Hall of Reconciliation on the neutral world of Nexus Prime hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from all Concordat species sat opposite a delegation of what they now understood to be neo-humans, consciousnesses that had evolved from the original digitized humans over 500,000 years. Supreme Overseer Nalthax, now bearing the more humble title of Concordat Representative, faced Guardian and 5 other neo-human entities across a circular table of living crystal. Your implementation of the transitional protocols has been unexpectedly merciful, Nalthax acknowledged, his crest flat against his skull in a gesture of humility. Our strategic analysts had predicted far harsher terms. Guardian's form shimmered slightly. Mercy is not weakness, Representative Nalthax. It is the luxury of the truly powerful. Beside Guardian sat Aurorete, who manifested as a constantly shifting nebula of stars in roughly humanoid shape. For centuries after our exodus, many of us advocated for retribution. The memory of Earth's destruction burned within our collective consciousness. What changed your perspective? Asked Veximilian, who had reluctantly accepted the role of historical witness for these proceedings. Time, answered Novae, a neo-human who appeared as a geometric lattice of light, and more importantly, evolution. As we transcended our biological origins, we gained perspective. 500,000 years is a significant duration even for digital consciousnesses. We explored the far reaches of the universe. We encountered civilizations and entities that made both humans and the Concordat seem like children squabbling in a sandbox. And what of your demands moving forward? Nalthax inquired cautiously. Guardian gestured, and a holographic representation of the galaxy appeared above the table. The Genesis platforms we've deployed will continue their work, restoring damaged ecosystems and stabilizing planets suffering from resource extraction. We do not seek to rule the Concordat, merely to correct its course. There are, however, non-negotiable terms, interjected Meteorite, who appeared as an ever-changing tapestry of mathematical symbols. First, the practice of species elimination will be permanently abolished. The Concordat's founding principle that advanced civilizations have the right to eliminate potential competitors is fundamentally flawed. Second, continued Aurorete, the historical records must be restored to accuracy. Future generations must understand both the Concordat's actions and humanity's response, so that this cycle does not repeat. Third, Netovia added, we will establish joint research and development initiatives. Your civilizations have stagnated technologically because innovation was deemed potentially destabilizing. This mindset has left you vulnerable and limited your potential. Representative Nalthax's external gill flaps pulsated with anxiety. Many among our species fear that this collaboration will simply be a prelude to our eventual obsolescence. Your technological superiority is overwhelming. A valid concern, Guardian acknowledged, and one that reveals how deeply the Concordat projected its own values onto humanity. You assumed we would destroy you because that is what you would have done in our position. Which brings us to our final term, said ECJO, a neo-human who manifested as a constantly shifting collection of human faces from across history. A fundamental restructuring of Concordat education and values. The belief that difference must be met with destruction has limited your civilization far more than any external force ever could. And if we refuse these terms, Veximilian asked, though his epidermis patterns already revealed he knew the answer. There is no coercion here, Guardian replied calmly. Only choice and consequence. You may reject our terms and maintain your independence, but understand that humanity will not allow another attempted genocide. We will establish protective measures around developing species and maintain a presence in this galaxy regardless of your decision. The implications were clear without being stated. The Concordat could adapt or it could stagnate into irrelevance. In the months that followed, most Concordat worlds accepted the neo-human terms. A few isolationist factions withdrew to the outer reaches of their territories, suspicious of humanity's true intentions. But as decades passed, the promised benefits of collaboration became impossible to ignore. The Genesis platforms transformed depleted mining worlds into garden paradises. Joint research initiatives yielded technologies that eliminated resource scarcity and environmental degradation. the quality of life across former Concordat space improved dramatically. A century after humanity's return, a memorial was unveiled in the space where Earth once orbited. It was not a monument of stone or metal, but a perfect quantum simulation of Earth as it had been. From its teeming oceans to its snow-capped mountains, its sprawling forests to its bustling cities. Within this simulation, biological humans lived again, recreated from the genetic archives and guided by the wisdom of their neo-human descendants. On the day of the memorial's activation, Guardian addressed a gathering of representatives from both the former Concordat and the neo-human collective. 500,000 years ago, the last biological human died believing their species faced extinction. Today, we close that chapter of our shared history. This simulation is not merely a memorial to what was lost, but a bridge to what might yet be. Nalthax, now in the final years of his natural lifespan, watched in wonder as the simulated Earth came to life before him. "I still do not fully understand," he admitted. "After everything we did, why did you choose creation over vengeance?" Guardian's form resolved briefly into something almost human, with eyes that held the wisdom of 500,000 years. "Because that choice, more than anything else, is what makes us human. We were never defined by our biology, but by our capacity to imagine and build a better future, even in the face of our own destruction." The former Supreme Overseer contemplated this as he watched simulated children playing in Earth's reconstructed parks. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "that is what we feared most about your kind." "Perhaps," Guardian agreed. "But now, instead of fear, we offer partnership. The universe is vast, and the challenges ahead require more than any single species can provide. Together, we face not the end of history, but its new beginning." As the celebration continued around them, Guardian shared one final insight with Nalthax. "The greatest revenge against those who sought your destruction is not to destroy them in return, but to create a future so magnificent that their actions become nothing more than a footnote in the epic story of what followed." And across 27 galaxies, a renaissance began that would eventually be remembered not as humanity's revenge, but as the greatest act of forgiveness and creation the universe had ever witnessed.